Chinese President Xi Jinping proposed a global security initiative, and he revisited this concept this morning during his video address to the Boao Forum that is taking place. Now, there are so many things going on in this world, the Ukraine-Russia conflict, the economic recovery. The goal of China's foreign policy and its domestic policy, according to the Chinese president, is to stay committed to the vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. For more discussions on this and many other issues, we have with us today Einar Tangen, political and economic affairs commentator, and Professor Liu Baocheng, director of the Center for International Business Ethics from the University of International Business and Economics. Great to have you with us. It has been a while since all three of us are sitting in the studio.
Well, luckily we have the source.
Well, let's get to it. President Xi's address this morning. Anything sticks out for you, Professor Liu?
I think some people may say, okay, you already talked about some of the notions in previous occasions, but now it is very important to reiterate on these very important notions, because now we are facing far more challenges than before, and right now global deceleration of economic growth, and actually there are more and more people are really suffering from hunger, and then the regional conflict is being escalated, and then the pandemic is still looming large over many other countries for lack of vaccination. So then we have to address a long-term issue between economic growth and lifestyle versus the climate change, which threatens the small Earth that over 7 billion people are really inhabitants. So therefore, how we can really, these correct notions be translated into actual action, and people can be really to buy in. So this is a alarm to everybody that are engaged, and particularly for those politicians and also business leaders to think twice of what they are doing now.
Mm-hmm. Einar, the Chinese president said that Asia should be an anchor for world peace, a powerhouse for global growth, and a new pacesetter for international cooperation. Do you see that happening?
Well, it's already happened. If you start looking at Asia as a region, it's half the world economic output in terms of manufacturing. It's just under 50% in terms of the world's GDP. Largest markets out there, and it's been growing consistently faster than anywhere else in the world. So yes, if you start looking for a future, and you can tell by the FDI numbers, foreign direct investment, it's still pouring into Asia. There are concerns, but the concerns are greater now about Europe, especially with the Ukrainian crisis, the US and the economic walls, long-arm jurisdiction, things like that. Right now, it's a very difficult time for businessmen to invest because you have so much uncertainty out there, and business people like certainty. So right now, if you start looking at the world, Asia is definitely the most certain place that you can look.
Yeah. Professor Liu, you talked about buy-ins from the Chinese business people, the Chinese consumers, of the messages that we've been hearing, cooperation, stimulating growth. How do you think the Boao Forum can perhaps address the issue of making more, let's say, expats and people living in other parts of the world to have more buy-ins of the Chinese concept of cooperation, common prosperity, so on and so forth?
Well, the narrative used to be monopolized by the Western world for the whole for the whole world, and now people talk about so many years about the North and South issue. It seems that the North world is expected to give more sympathy and practical aid and development for those underdeveloped countries, but now Asia stand out. Actually, as emerging economies, some of them are really in the third world, but they stand out over the past 20 years, to serve as a locomotive for global growth. And the other is the integrity of the Asian culture or Oriental culture that really serve as quite a coercion to bond these people. We have some, border problems. We still may have some of the grudges, but we are able to solve it in a peaceful manner. To maintain stability is really the foundation for prosperity. And also now we also have very structured relationship the CPTPP is underway, and then the RCEP is also playing a very important role. So only by teaming together to give people a better life, and people will have the confidence, and this type of confidence and this type of drive will be able to proliferate the spirit and the ethos around the world. So that's a showcase.
Hopefully there will be a moment and time where there will be a critical mass so that the tide of history, the tide of opinions can be shifted, although it may take a time, but many hope that it will happen slowly but surely. Einar, I want to ask you about the Chinese economy. We saw the figures 2 days ago, 4.8% year-on-year growth in the first quarter. It's not looking great, especially if you are considering the fact that much of the growth comes from the first and second months.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was definitely a slowdown in the third month, but it did beat expectations, which were at 4.4%. So there's something good in there. The question is, what is the long-term trend?
And right anything now, any policy signals and directions you picked up from the Boao Forum?
Oh, yeah. You're definitely going to see some stimulus coming in. China realizes that it's not just domestically within China, but if the Asia region is going to prosper, there's got to be real money on the table. In terms of the Belt and Road Initiative and other initiatives, there's no way you can say, we want you to do it. 60% of the world's economies are now at a point where they're almost 50% of their government revenues are being put towards their debt. And this is at a time when the people can barely afford food and energy. You've seen this in Sri Lanka. You're going to see this throughout the world unless somebody steps up and helps. The difficulty is that this is not something China can do alone. It would really behoove the G20 to come together. But last time they met, they punted.
Yeah, well, unfortunately. Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, said that the one thing she was bothered the most was the fragmentation of the world economy. And actually we saw that, right? The World Economic Outlook offered by the IMF downsized the economic outlook for 180 of the world's economy. What do you make? First of all, do you share Madame Georgieva's sentiment?
Well, this sentiment is something that is really echoed around the world, actually among economists. And right now, we do see quite a sort of a division and between the many of the political blocs that are really in the shape. And this will also set up the ideological basis for protectionism and isolationism. And now the spikes of the global commodity prices can really hurt a lot more people, and particularly now the acute shortage of grain to those underdeveloped world is something that is that must be addressed by the whole world. And people look at always the Ukraine issues, but there are a lot more people who are suffering malignantly over the years. And so it is really a very important time for the test of those political responsibility from the major economies and major nations to be able to address some of the acute problems instead of only taking care of their own interest that is supposedly to be under threat.
I want to emphasize a point there. We had globalization. We see when it happened. Now people are dissatisfied because they perceive that they lost. So you're now seeing regionalization. RCEP, TCPPP. What these are gathering countries together. And what China and the rest of these nations are doing is talking about being more efficient. They're already the low-cost providers. They already have huge markets, but they want to drive the costs down even further through technology, digitalization 4.0, et cetera. When they do that, they're more competitive, which means their goods and services. And talking about services, trade and services was way up. And this is a watershed because this is really the rise of Asia being able to take care of the service side of things is a completely new idea. It had always been that the West is superior and we know how to do services, and we will be the ones who do that. Now you're seeing a real sea change.
And finally, gentlemen, I want to get to one last question that we have that is really on this. How can China balance its goals of doing grain growth while growing at all, right? If you look at the job numbers, the unemployment numbers, and the obstacles facing the Chinese economy to grow, given the lockdowns, the geopolitical external shocks?
Well, President Xi actually, I still remember when he was there to speak with the Davos or the World Economic Forum. He said we need to strike a fine balance between economic growth and also the environmental responsibility. Otherwise, we're really climbing the tree for a fish. So therefore, it is important to address the current problem. People need to survive, and businesses need to grow before they have, the full blue sky. This is a very practical approach. But China is really making tremendous amount of efforts to reduce those heavy pollutant industries and also trying to convert the digital economy into real productivity and also to provide more decent jobs to those youngsters.
Einar?
I'd agree. I mean, China is trying to provide a different model, and people should keep in mind that China always sticks to its goals. I mean, they'll do a lot. So when they say, as you said, that there's going to have to be short-term adjustments, what they then do is put the planning in to achieve the end goals. So you can expect a lot of, there's a lot of talk about the green economy, how that is going to be beneficial. It's a balance between these things, achieving the long-term goals, but people have to eat in the meantime.
Alrighty, Professor Liu and Einar, thank you so much. Always great to have you with us. We hope we can do more of these face-to-face discussions soon. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in to The Hub on CGTN. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Thank you for watching. Our news coverage continues on CGTN.